When picking a biome chest weapon in Terraria, you have a few choices. Usually players would want something practical and powerful to help them progress into the endgame. Today, we're going to be looking at potentially the least popular weapon out of all 6 biome chest options, the rainbow gun. I can already hear the lack of enthusiasm surrounding this weapon. Unlike the Scourge of the Corruptor, which is massively underrated, the rainbow gun I think gets what it deserves, as it's quite hard to use and only really works in certain scenarios. However, this doesn't mean that it's not worth getting. There are absolutely some cases where this weapon can shine, so without further ado, here's the quickest way you can obtain this thing. Like any biome weapon, it can be found in the corresponding biome chest in the dungeon, which requires a key to open. In this case, the hallowed key, which has a 1 in 2,500 chance of dropping from any enemy killed while in the hallowed biome. You can either farm for it manually by killing as many hallowed enemies as possible in your underground, or by creating an actual farming platform for it to speed up the grind. There are 2 ways you can do this. One way is by simply placing rows of pearlstone in a completely empty space underground. This will only spawn underground hallowed enemies, which can be quickly killed on spawn with a weapon like the Bat Scepter. Amazing weapon, by the way. Although this does work, weirdly I found the spawn rate to not be as high as creating an artificial hallowed biome by placing a bunch of pearlstone next to each other and leaving the platforms out of a non-biome tile. From my experience, this will spawn a much higher quantity of hallowed and underground enemies, and it doesn't matter what you kill, as long as you're stood in the hallowed biome, anything will have a chance to drop the key. Once you've got your key, don't forget to head to your dungeon and have a scout around for your hallowed chest. Its blue and gold design shouldn't be hard to miss, and with that you've got yourself a rainbow gun. Now we've got our hands on it, let's see if it's worth all the hassle. The rainbow gun is a magic weapon that launches a rainbow in a straight line for a short distance before curving downwards. Any enemy that comes in contact with a rainbow will take damage repeatedly, approximately 5 times per second. The rainbow can travel infinitely but will disappear after 20 seconds. Obviously this is not meant for single targets and is bespoke to large crowds of enemies. Just look at that DPS on all those dummies. Its effect is even more impressive on the real thing. I think it's safe to say this is one of the fastest killing group weapons in the game. But this is where us using the word fastest stops. On anything that isn't a tightly packed group of low health enemies, it just doesn't work. Trying to take out these biome mimics was an absolute nightmare as they constantly moved out of its damage area. Its effectiveness drops even more on bosses. Even Golem took forever to take out with this thing, and despite thinking this boss would be quite static, I constantly had to reposition my rainbow just to hit a segment for a few seconds. And I mean, you're probably thinking, well, this is obviously meant for support, it's simply not a primary weapon. But even then, the constant switching and repositioning costs me valuable time where I could be dealing damage with another weapon, and the few hits it gets in doesn't make up for this. So if bosses aren't its thing, what about a more enemy-themed challenge, like the pillars? The pillars would realistically be the next goal after defeating Golem. So how does it hold up here? And unfortunately, even with every damage accessory imaginable, it just does not deal enough damage to be worth putting down. The Stardust enemies just fly through like it doesn't exist, and the constant faff needed to place it in a good spot just makes me take unnecessary damage and kill me even faster. And this is the problem I have with this weapon. Although on paper, in a controlled environment, it's absolutely brilliant and does what it's supposed to do. But the thing is, in a late game Terraria playthrough, I find myself not having the time to place this thing down just for a bit of damage. And even if Relogic buffed it and removed the 20-second limit, the damage should be at least twice as high as stuff usually just passes through and gets hit once or twice. What do you think? If you like the rainbow gun, I'd love to know what you use it on and if you think it's worth getting. Thanks for watching. For more Terraria content like this, drop a like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.